Holly, just introduce yourself and tell me what you do for a living and where you work.
Sure. My name is Holly Collins, and I am a vocational rehabilitation counselor. By day, job coach is really what my title would be. And I have a primary focus as a transition coordinator at the St. Francis Project Search site, which is a program for individuals with autism that are transitioning from high school into the workforce. It's a year-long internship program that they have based in a community setting, and mine happens to be at a hospital. And I also have an additional caseload of clients that work out in the community. Some have been working for several years, some have been working for a few months, and some are still looking for jobs. But basically I support them on the job site, training them on how to do their jobs, how to learn specific tasks that they are assigned, and then how to with individuals with autism particularly, how to manage behaviors, how to develop behavioral interventions and things of that nature.
How many of the people that you work with have autism?
Right now I have, of my caseload of about 20 or so, 14 of them have autism. That I think just happens mostly because I've been doing Project Search for 3 years now, and their main goal is to serve individuals with ASD, so most of them fall into that category.
And what are the other diagnoses that you see?
I have some, VCU prides itself in helping the individuals with the most significant disabilities typically, so we have a lot with traumatic brain injury, intellectual disabilities, vision and hearing impairment. We just cover it all.
You and I met through the research project that we've been doing using iPod touches as cognitive aids for people on the job who have autism. I just wanted to chat with you for a few minutes about some of the people that you've worked with, because I know you've had some challenges but also some real successes in using these tools for those people. So is there anyone particularly you'd like to just start to chat about? And if you could just tell me a story about one of those people, that would be great.
Sure. We've had absolute wonderful success across the board with doing all types of handheld assistive technology. But I have one particular individual that when he came to our program, he was originally deemed unemployable. He has very challenging behaviors. He has a lot of self-stimulatory behaviors. He rocks and he does head banging and he picks at his face. And so those were considered by school and any of his previous internship experiences, things of that nature, to be too challenging for him to succeed in the workforce. He completed our year-long internship program at St. Francis and was he completed it satisfactorily. When we were in the program, he didn't have an iPod, and we always thought it would really, really benefit him if he could do this, if he could be part of the study, or if his parents could buy him one, or if he could just have an iPod. I think it would make all the difference in the world. We used a lot of visual supports with him, hand-drawn supports, computer graphics, and also written schedules. And so having 50 sheets of paper in his pocket that said, this is what you do today, and this is what you do if you have a bad day, and this is what you do if you need to ask a question, he was carrying around a lot of stuff. But then when he finished the program, we actually found him a job in the community at a competing hospital, and he has been working there for about a year and a half. When he started, we enrolled him in your iPod study, and we just thought that was the best thing possible, imaginable. And because of his unique situation and his behaviors, we knew that a traditional interview wasn't really going to be something that would be successful for him. So I compiled pictures of him when he was working, and some video clips of him working and his actual handwritten resume into a PowerPoint presentation that it's kind of a meet this particular individual's, it's got all of his abilities basically, and any pertinent information for him working. It also has a link to some of his references, some of his handwritten references. So he is able to carry this around with him now on his iPod. He also, I have a personal iPad that I took when he went and interviewed for this position. We showed the supervisor this on his, on the iPad, and he's able to show enthusiasm and be happy about the fact that he can say, hey, you know, I'm working, and otherwise he wouldn't be able to articulate that he.
Does this young man, is he articulate? Does he talk?
He's mostly nonverbal.
Okay.
He will say a few words. He can read sight words. He's about at a 4th grade reading level, so he can read written schedules, but visual supports have been key for him. And that, you know, in combination with the behaviors, really deter him from carrying on a normal conversation.
So I'm thinking about people who might want to use this kind of a strategy to help other people go on a job interview.
Right.
What do you think would have happened if he had gone on a job interview without the supports that you put in place for him? How would that likely go?
Probably not very well. He would have shut down. More than likely, without being able to interact with the employer, he probably would have started doing a lot of the self-stemming. When he gets nervous or anxious or isn't able to communicate his needs, then he will start rocking or he will flee. There have been times where he's just completely run, and because he's not able to tell you what he wants or what he needs or what he wants to say. So this was extremely helpful for him. He was able to show the pictures, and it's kind of an interactive multimedia approach to a resume.
So he went through the PowerPoint slideshow in the interview.
Right.
That's such a powerful invention.
It was wonderful. And now that he's been successfully employed, he's been using the iPod on site since day one. We were able to input his schedule in the Notes app. We do video modeling with him frequently for tasks that have multi-step pieces. We're able to show ourselves or show him or video him doing what he needs to be doing so that he can always reference it. And because it's handheld and he's able to keep it with him at all times, it's something that he's able to reference frequently, which is just invaluable.
Give me an example of a video, the video that you made for the particular task.
He has a lot of difficulty asking for help and asking questions because he doesn't necessarily know the words for the items that he needs. If he were to run out of paper towels, for instance, he works as an environmental services aide, and he cleans the radiation oncology department in the hospital, and he does the work that it would take an average employee 8 hours to do in about 4 hours, because he is just really efficient. It's amazing. And if he runs out of a supply and a job coach is not on site, which is ultimately the goal for us to fade and allow him to be independent, then he doesn't know what to do. So we have made videos asking appropriately for more paper towels, or, you know, what do you do when you run out of paper towels? Do you just go run outside, or do you say, oh, I'm out of paper towels, well, this is what I should do now? And we're able to systematically break down everything so that he knows exactly step by step what he should do.
What other things are on the iPod that he uses?
He uses Tactical Breathing Trainer, which is an app that is able to kind of help him breathe and decompress when he starts to get agitated. He also uses Story Kit frequently, which has a visual part of his schedule. All of his work schedule entails cleaning about 25 rooms, and every single one has different multi-step pieces. And there's some really expensive high-tech equipment that he's responsible for cleaning. So we're able to put everything in there according to his preferences. And for instance, his favorite color is blue, so we personalized everything that we were able to. It's all blue, and when he reads it, he says, "Oh, blue," and so he knows exactly what he needs to do. We also did some little skits with Godzilla because he really likes Godzilla a lot, and so there's some.
The monster Godzilla?
Yes, the monster Godzilla. And so we're able to, you know, if he's starting to get off task or he's starting to get distracted, we'll say, you know, no Godzilla, and we'll show him the video of Godzilla and him acting like Godzilla, so he knows that he's not supposed to act that way, and he's able to, he loves to reference his own iPod. And we also use Angry Birds when he's on break. When he has downtime, he has the self-stimming tends to come out a lot more. And so if he's in a public area, if there's anybody else with him in the break room, then he's able to play Angry Birds. And it's great because he keeps it on silent, and it looks like he's just another professional checking his email when he's actually playing Angry Birds, which is another really big perk. Probably the most interesting thing that he's ever used his iPod for was when we started the fading process with him, and we kind of faded on both ends of his shift. So we were coming in about an hour after he started, and we were leaving about an hour before he left. And he arrived one day during a brush fire, and the power was out in the hospital. They were on backup generator power, but half of his department didn't have lights. And so I rushed to get there on time when I learned that they didn't have power in the hospital, and I found him working in a room independently with the flashlight on his phone. And this is pre-iOS 7, where they now have flashlight, built into everything, but he has a flashlight app on his phone, and he was using the flashlight just on his own independently. No one had to prompt him, so that he could see what he was doing. And it was really impressive that he was able to pull that information and reference back and say, oh, I know what I need to do here. He's able to problem solve independently, which is something that we never would have expected prior to using the technology.
Are there parts of the iPod intervention that you faded out with him, or does he still use all the things that you started with?
No, he actually very rarely uses the schedule anymore at all, because he's able to remember everything independently. Yeah. The tactical breathing training is also rare for him to use, because he's now able to manage most of his own behavior on his own. We've taken a lot of data on him because he is such a unique student, and because of it's kind of one of those when you're told you can't, you want to prove that you can, and he's just that student that is just a perfect example of supports being in place. But he is able to now, for the most part, do everything on his own. He really only uses it in those unique circumstances, like when he's using it for a flashlight, or if he needs to reference the video modeling. It's great for him to have in times of transition when they change the types of supplies that he's supposed to use, or if he gets a new manager, then he's able to bring it back out when he feels that change is a big thing for individuals with autism. So whenever there's a big change, he gets apprehensive and nervous, and so he's able to pull it back out, and somebody doesn't have to be there to support him. He can use the iPod.
So it sounds like you're telling me that he understands how to use it, chooses to use it without you having to cue him to do that, and adapts how much he uses it on the job to what his actual needs are, in the same way that you and I would do it.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Yes.
It really is. Do you know if he uses any other things? Like, does he use it at all at home, as far as you know?
Occasionally, yes. He has a personal aide that comes in the morning and works with him for various things, from just personal hygiene to going out and completing his day-to-day routine. And he's mostly independent in those areas, but he has difficulty adapting to change. So one of the things we've been working on with him outside of work, because if you improve your home life, your overall life improves, and so changing his routine and not always being not always going to Taco Bell for lunch, or not always having to go to Target. He can branch out and go to Walmart every once in a while. So we've put different options in there for his recreational activities, and it's actually increased a lot of his independence at home. His mom frequently comments that he is now he's participating in a bowling extracurricular league that he had given up years ago, that he didn't want to do before, because it's one of the options in his iPod. He's able to select, this is what I want to do today after I finish working.
So just remind, it gives him a choice that he might not have thought of.
Exactly. It gives him choices, which is really the key.
Yeah.
And the options are endless when it comes to what, technology is improving every day. So we're always able to put something new in there, and I'm blown away, and his mom's learning how to use it independently too, so I'm sure there's more that I don't even know that he uses it for at home that he's able to really benefit from.
Let me just ask you a couple of logistical issues around using it with him. How long would you say it took you to get him up to speed where he was comfortable interacting with the device at work?
He was comfortable interacting. He really was impressed that he had, you know, an iPod altogether at first, so we couldn't get him to put it down when he first got it. But actually, you know, functionality-wise, using everything correctly and appropriately, it took a few months of constantly of sitting down with him every break time that he got, or spending about 30 minutes with him before his shift to show him, you know, this is what we're going to put in here today, this is what this is used for.
Right.
And also removing a lot of the extra stuff on the iPod, like any of the other apps that just happened to be there, or any of the things that he's like, oh, you know, what can I use this for? What's this button for? Because he likes to just select anything on the screen that he
Right.
sees. So kind of removing the excess and making it a little bit more functional helped him.
And so you were using his break time as a chance to train him for the next thing you wanted him to do.
Exactly.
That seems like a good plan. Is there anything else you want to share with me about his situation or using the device with him? Because we're going to move on to someone else if we have
Sure.
something like that.
No, I think we're good. He uses it every day, multiple times a day, and on his own now. It's as you mentioned before, it's hard to replace the intervention of a job coach with technology, but it's great that we're able to do that. Nothing will fully replace the help that you get when you have somebody, you know, physically able to prompt you to do something or to learn a task a different way or anything like that. But it's really a great step in the right direction for helping him.
Who else would you like to chat about?
I have another student that is actually not part of the iPod study, but he has an iPod independently, which was something that we had suggested to his family based on success with other students that had been part of the trial, who works in the pharmacy department at the St. Francis Hospital, where we have our Project Search program. And he is...
This is a young man with autism as well?
Yes. He has fairly significant autism. He does a lot of movie scripting and rehearsing out loud. So he really likes certain Disney movies, and will, when he sees a movie that he really likes for days on end, he will quote the movie and will very rarely have normal personal interactions with people. And
So he has a photographic memory when he sees a movie?
he does, and it's scary. I have never seen lines rehearsed with such accuracy before in my entire life, but he is able to quote every single line after seeing the movie one time, which says a lot about his memory, which makes having the iPod all the more beneficial. The nature of his work is he works in the pharmacy, so it's scientific, for lack of a better word, and he is fortunately very mathematically minded, and he's responsible for stocking all of the inventory, all of the new pharmaceutical products when they come in the morning. He was recently increased. He was working 3 days a week. He's now working 5 days a week because his job is that important, and he's valued so highly there that he's able to work every single day of the week, and he's working 40 hours a week at a really decent wage, which is wonderful. But he had some trouble when he first started with figuring out how he was supposed to convert ratios on items that were powder versus liquid versus pill form. And so fortunately I'm a chemistry minor, which just happened to luck of the draw with him, but I was able to put in conversion charts in his iPod, so he's now able to reference those on his own without having to, you know, figure out exactly what he needs to do in his mind. He's also able to use the calculator all the time, which is great, because he needs to add and subtract and do division, converting things back and forth when he's putting them in the area that they belong. Eventually, he'll be responsible for putting together chemotherapy orders, which is something that they've expressed is really helpful for him to have the iPod with him, because he'll have to use the calculator very frequently, and he'll have to know exactly what dosages of things go where, which I thought was pretty unique and awesome. He also uses it during break times, same thing as the young man that I was talking about, with avoiding the self-stimming. He eats lunch in the cafeteria with the rest of the employees. He likes to eat lunch by himself, even though everybody asks him frequently if he'll come sit with them. He likes to be independent. So if he's not engaged, then he will talk loudly to himself, or he'll sing loudly to himself, and occasionally he'll pace. And so the handheld helps him a lot with, he's able to watch movies, he wears his headphones, he's able to check his email, he does check his email on the iPod, so he's able to really stay focused and not, be all over the place in the cafeteria, because it's a pretty cramped cafeteria, so it can be invasive sometimes when he's pacing back and forth, or he's talking and yelling to himself, and people think that there's something wrong with it, he's in trouble or alarmed, and so this is able to really reel him in and keep it on track.
It sounds that he's found a really good place, and you set him up in a really good way to get this complex job done. Does he use any of the more basic organizational strategies that iPod would help with, like reminding him to do things or
Yes.
tests, lists, or anything of that nature?
Yes, depending on, he's got his basic day-to-day schedule down pat. We did put in just the regular notes app, a breakdown of his schedule, but I've put in the alarms and in the reminders when he needs to change. Another big part of his job is to check the expiration dates on medications, and he has to go through and check all of the dates. So I've gone into his calendar app and into his reminders and put in when he needs to change the date for a further out date.
Right.
And now he's able to do that on his own. So he
Right.
knows that if today is October 15th and he needs to check through November 15th, he's able to know how far out he needs to go now. When he first started, it was March, and he was checking for dates that expired in March and not in advance like he should have been. So he's now learning how to project and how to problem solve again on his own without they're still in there, the reminders, just in case, because he
Right.
can be a little forgetful, but again, that's the perk to having it on hand at all times.
Right. If you weren't using the iPod, would you have been able to manage these sorts of strategies in some other way, you think?
Potentially with visual supports or with natural supports on site, with using some of his coworkers as prompts or his, but it really has, it would have been difficult. I can't really imagine, now that we have the technology, a way to get around it.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking with both of the young men that you talked about, they own these things, they carry them with them to work. Have there been challenges with keeping them charged, taking care of them, losing them, anything of that nature?
Occasionally, yes. There are very few real challenges to using an iPod other than your own forgetfulness. And having ASD, they use the iPod to remember things, so they don't always remember to charge the iPod, or to bring the iPod to work, or to bring the charger, or to bring the headphones, and so those are things we are working on. Fortunately, they both have heavy-duty belt clips. The first young man that I was talking about is so particular in his dress in the morning and in getting prepared to go to work that the iPod has now just become an ingrained behavior. If he doesn't clip the iPod on his belt, he knows there's something seriously wrong and he won't go to work.
Right.
So it's this, he puts on, he wears sunglasses in the wintertime. He puts sunglasses around his neck. He puts his keys on a lanyard around his neck. He puts his hat on. He puts his coat on. He puts his scarf on, depending on the weather, and he clips his iPod on. So that's become an ingrained behavior. With the other individual, there have been occasions when he's forgotten the iPod. Those have been rough days.
Mm.
So those days that, and every day that it happens becomes less of an occurrence later on down the road, because he realizes how difficult it is to function without it.
Right.
So it makes it less likely that he'll forget it in the future.
When you're, if you were talking to another vocational counselor or job coach, and they didn't know anything about this idea of using handheld devices like Cognition, what kind of advice would you give them for getting started, learning how to use it, or using it with their clients?
Fortunately, there's a lot of information out there, research-wise. That's kind of what I had to do. I fortunately have a lot of Apple devices and have had them, since the implementation of the original iPod. I have one of the really large, big, thick iPods, the 30 gig ones with the turn dial,
Yeah.
from the Stone Ages, but really just, you kind of have to start with all of your original supports, your initial behavioral supports, your visual supports that you use daily, and try to just, if you are fortunate enough to have the technology, play around with it, do your best to learn exactly everything that, needs to be, it's a constant learning process. So with technology, no matter what type of technology it is, there are students who are very familiar with it because of the fortunate, they're being taught in school age group wise, but there are 50 and 60-year-old adults that are very familiar with using the technology just because you spend the time to learn what you need to do. So I guess
Right.
the best recommendation would be to sit down and spend the time and try to learn as much as you can in as much time as you can, and really try, if you have the opportunity to use the technology yourself, that really benefits as well.
Yeah.
Fortunately, like I said, I have an iPhone and an iPod and an iPad, so it's been really helpful with students throughout. I have students that have them as part of Project Search, and we're able to FaceTime, which has been an absolute blessing, for lack of a better word, with the students, because if you can't be in two places at once. So if I'm working with one student and I have another that's in another department that has an issue, they're able to FaceTime me on their iPods and locate, and they can say, I'm having this problem, I don't know how to fix this, can you help me? And I'm like, can you show me? And they can physically take the phone and show me what's going on. I'm hoping, I don't know how it works. Again, you are always learning how the proximity, if you have to be within a certain distance, I don't think you do, to FaceTime.
Right, as long as you have Wi-Fi.
Right,
Yeah.
it may benefit way down the road when you're fading from a job site. If you have a student who, the young man that I was talking about, for instance, fading has been a constant issue because there have been so many changes on the work site that it's been hard. We've been working with him constantly for a year and a half. Maybe eventually it'll get to the point where he's able to use his iPod and FaceTime and say, I'm having this problem, can you help me? And show us, which is just, again, invaluable. I can't sing the praises of iPods enough.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about that. Are there any things that you wanted to just say in general about using these tools as vocational aids?
It's really eliminated a lot of the paperwork and a lot of the, it's helped a lot with our, just in general, VCU being a research facility and doing a lot of data collection and task analysis and things of that nature. It's helped a lot with collecting data for us, which has been wonderful. It's really something that being handheld is another thing that I talked about earlier, eliminating carrying around all those papers and having, paper coming out of all your pockets and out of your ears, and this is just one device that you're able to, it's very concise and you're able to reference many different things. I would be completely lost without an iPhone. I hate to say it. I tried once to do, I forget exactly what they call when you go off the grid, but I essentially went off the grid for a day, and it was the most miserable day of my life because I couldn't check my email and I couldn't check my, my phone and things of that nature. But it's really helped to just having constant accessibility is really the main perk. Being able to constantly check and see exactly what you need has been much more of a help than it has a hindrance. I had some concern initially that maybe over-checking would be something that we saw with individuals with autism or ADHD or things that, with the extra hyperactivity level, that they may constantly check their phone, but that really hasn't been something that we face. They know that it's a work tool and it's something that they're to use for work, but it's really the being part of the study particularly and identifying it as we use this for work, and you can use it when you get home, and you can use it however you want to use it when you get home, but when you use it for work, you use it for work, has really worked out well.
So you have not had significant challenges with people being distracted by the device while they're trying to get their work done?
No, and I really thought it would be the opposite.
Yeah.
Abusing it is something that we talk about regularly, how we'll handle that if that occurs, but it has not been something that has happened. I think if you make it as much about work as you can and as little about recreational use, then it helps to kind of distinguish that for them. But no, we really haven't had. I really thought it would be otherwise. I don't know if I can give a reason why it hasn't been that way, but it hasn't.
Yeah. It's really. I wanted to thank you for taking the time to chat with me, and I wanted to just ask: is there anything that you would like to share that we haven't, that I haven't asked you a question about, or that you came here thinking that you might want to say about the project, or just using iPods as cognitive aids in general?
Aside from singing the praises as much as I can and just saying how great it's been, and how wonderful of an opportunity that it's provided for the students and for our clients, now I think, do you have any additional questions?
No, you're an avatar for using these things, and I've watched you use them with severely challenged individuals and make it work, and I just want to applaud you for what you've done. You've taught me how to use them in ways I would never have dreamed of, and I think the people that you're helping, so much of what they're getting is because of your genius, and I just want to thank you for that.
Thank you so much. The opportunities with them are endless, and it's a constant learning process. So that's what's so great about them.
Thank you so much, Mom. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.